We would begin if, Matt, you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Matt. And Kathy, would you attend to the agenda, please?
Sure. Item number one, approval of the minutes of August 15, 2023, and September 5th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of September 5th.
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you.
Item number two, new public business.
Mr. Bradstreet.
Bill Bradstreet, town meeting member, precinct 1. Two things if I could. I attend a lot of meetings and I noticed that some, not picking on the commissions, boards, sometimes the rules to me need to be updated, reviewed or whatever. Is there a set procedure or a set time limit between when they're reviewed? Is it done every year or what have you? Am I not? I'm trying to word this correctly. When I sit and I listen, sometimes, to me, only because I'm old, some of what is
You're not
said
as old
is
as me.
confusing.
You're not as old as me.
All
Go,
right.
but continue.
I'll give you that. It's just that when I watch and listen, sometimes I think to me, it appears that the rules or the states come down with changed rules, that they need to be reviewed.
Okay. Steve, would you care to comment?
Generally, the boards and commissions in town follow Robert's Rules of Order. And I don't believe the boards have adopted specific rules and regs for how they conduct their business. They all follow the statute that would pertain to their jurisdiction. They're subject to the code of conduct that's adopted by this board. But certainly, if you had questions about specific boards or committees and wanted to stop in, I or Aaron Henry could kind of look into that and give you a specific answer, Bill.
I'm not picking on any
Okay.
board. It's just a general observation of mine. And the other thing is, I know I've discussed it before, Pope's Landing, the dog park down there doesn't seem to be working very well. I see pets roaming around, watering the trees. Right now, there's one large tree that is dead, and I think there's 3 trees down there that are trying to die. Could they all be replaced with a tree of substantial girth, not the young saplings that are down there now that don't stand much of a chance to get started? I believe you can go to a nursery and get a nice tree that has 3 or 4 inch base for it to be a little hardier, perhaps different trees down there. I'd like to see a evergreen down there that could be decorated for Christmas, for the holiday season. Danvers is a town that we're all proud of, and I'd like to see something else that we could be proud of in the town.
Thank you, Bill. Steve, would you care to comment?
I will pass those thoughts on to our tree warden.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. All I need is you're working on it.
Is there any further new public business? Kathy, proceed, please.
Item 3, the board will meet an appointee to the Cultural Council.
While Kimberly Brisbois is making her way to the podium to introduce herself to the board, I will note she reached out, she applied through the town's talent pool form, serves on the North Shore Arts Council Board, and has worked for a number of years as an enrichment coordinator at Riverside School. And we are very excited to have her join the council, and I would stop talking now and turn it over to her.
Thank you. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm
Could
Kim
you just tell
Brisbois.
us about yourself, if you like, and your interest
All right.
in this committee assignment?
All right, so I've worked, my kids have all gone through Riverside. I have a 5th grader now, I have a senior, well, I have a freshman in college now, and a junior at the high school. So for the last 14 years, I've been doing cultural enrichment at Riverside and going to the cultural council meetings every fall to apply for grants. And they had asked me most recently if I would consider joining, and so I applied when I saw the talent pool request, and here I am.
Thank you.
Yes.
There may be questions or comments from members of the board.
Sure.
Matt, have you any thoughts?
Sure. So I've gone before the cultural council in the past for the oldies night event.
Oh, yeah.
So I know, I recognize that the challenge for that group is they have a limited amount of financial resources. They're awarded money from the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
Right.
So the challenge is to kind of distribute the money kind of horizontally and try to help everybody out that you can. So it's not a lot of money. So that's, I think, the biggest impediment for serving on that is trying to kind of allocate limited resources to many groups that have need. So, but I wish you success in the role.
Thank you.
Any thoughts or comments?
Sure. Hi.
Hi.
So will you be the one that will be applying for the grants?
So this year is my last year doing enrichment for Riverside. So I did pull on a apprentice, if you will. So I will have them write the grant for Riverside this year.
Okay. Well, thank you for volunteering. That's it, David.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, had you any thoughts,
No,
comments?
just, Kimberly, thank you for applying, and good luck, and look forward to seeing you around, and thank you.
Thank you.
And Guy, have you?
Same comments. I want to thank you for volunteering your time and at Riverside and now with the Cultural Council. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
And thank you. I'm wondering, what exactly did you do as enrichment coordinator at Riverside?
So we have a budget, our PAC has a budget for enrichment for grade level. So I try to bring like 2 programs to each grade each year. So we've had things like, I don't know, rainforest reptiles comes for preschool and kindergarten. We've had a lot of science programs. We do a lot of STEM stuff. I try to bring in more cultural things for the assembly programs. We try to do 3 or 4 of them a year. Trying to think of something. We had COVID, obviously, sort of nicked our assemblies. I also do the townwide 5th grade. They all get together and see a play put on by Theater Espresso, like The Trial of Anthony Burns, it's called. So I coordinate all of that for all 5 elementary schools as well.
Thank you for your service and welcome. Thanks for volunteering.
Thank you.
Anything further from the board? Is there a vote necessary?
No,
Steve?
no.
Nothing.
Nothing, because it's
Thank-
Steve's appointment.
You can stay and watch the rest of this very boring meeting if you want, or you may.
Thank you.
You
I've
may
got dinner
wave.
to make, so I think I'll take my leave. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Item number 4, the board is requested to approve the sale of a $5,730,000 general obligation bond anticipation note issued to Piper Sandler and Company at a par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $51,570.
Steve, did you want to introduce the item?
No, actually. We have Rodney Conley, our Director of Administration and Finance, at the microphone, and he's joined by Jill Summit, our Treasurer Collector, in the audience. And this is their good news to share, so I will hand it directly to Rodney.
Thank
you.
Rod.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I wouldn't say it's as good a news as we've had in recent years, but we short-term borrowed $5.73 million with an interest cost rate of 3.6%, as we mentioned in the cover letter. A little bit higher than we've seen in recent years, but still good and strong based on the town's credit rating. As part of the process, S&P reaffirmed our AAA credit rating. The bulk of the money will go towards the ongoing landfill project, as well as smaller amounts for the Greenleaf project, our water main replacement program, and our sewer infrastructure improvement program. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rodney. Do we start? Why don't we start? If you may, Gardner, do you have questions?
I have no questions. I looked at the bond offering, and you're right. I wish we had some of the past interest rates, but I think it's still a attractive number, and thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Dan, did you have?
Thank you. Rodney, let's back up a little bit. This is for the landfill project, at the landfill, obviously. I thought we were gonna make money off of the dirt that was being dumped there, so what are we borrowing money for?
That's correct. Unfortunately, during the start of this project, working with bond counsel, auditors, the DOR, as well as our own town council, due to the restrictions based on the accounting procedure of the state, we weren't able to just take the cash in and use it to pay for the project. So the funding mechanism is we have to short-term borrow it. We'll never permanently finance the debt. We'll take in the revenue for the soil import and then use that revenue as it closes to free cash to appropriate to pay off the short-term note. So unfortunately, it means incurring, some interest costs over the next couple of years.
So, and that's minimal, basically, but.
Yeah, but
so
we'll never have to permanently
We're
finance.
borrowing money to collect money to pay off the money we're borrowing.
They wanted to keep the revenue and expenditure separate from each other, so we have to
Okay.
take in the revenue, then we will use that to ultimately pay down, but.
And the
two
revenue
separate
is still
transactions.
expected to be well in excess of the project cost.
I know it's not your department, but how far along is that project?
We're getting close to the original projections. The Stephen King, the town engineer, sent a memo just this week, actually, suggesting that we may want to have a conversation with the DEP about potentially taking in more soil than we had originally anticipated. But that will depend on the return on investment. As Rodney suggested, based on the preliminary approvals from the DEP, the net proceeds from this project will be in the millions of dollars. I'm not going to give a firm number tonight, but certainly we're thinking well north of potentially $4 million above the cost to open, manage, and close the project. So we'll look at that. We would come back to the board, obviously, if there was a potential to extend that project. But right now, it's on track. And we had discussed, when this project was brought before the board a couple years ago, project part one is taking in the soils at the landfill, closing that down. In parallel with that, the electric department is working on a ground-mounted solar project that will ultimately sit on top of that and generate revenue as well. But those are separate projects.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, a resident down by Plain Park asks what can be done with the dirt piles at Plains. Can that go to the landfill?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm half tempted to draw in our local expert who's sitting on the side of the room. He's shaking his head. It depends. We're very, the DEP is monitoring very closely the soils that go in there. That's possible. That's typically a temporary staging area that we use down at Plains Park. But I can certainly ask DPW
Yeah, I
to
think
report
it's
back.
minimal to the percentage of soil,
Yep.
whatever. Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Dan. Maureen, had you questions?
No,
or-
I'm all set there, answered, thank you.
Matt, questions or comments?
Oh, yes. You mentioned short-term bond. What's the duration of the bond?
So it's a one-year note.
1 year.
So the first year was rolled over an additional year. We took out the remaining authorization for this year with the intent to pay back as much as we can through the receipts next year, and then we'll probably end up rolling over smaller amounts for an additional year, but they're one-year terms each note.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. That's all I have.
That's all, Matt. Thank you, Rodney. Are there any other board questions or comments? Does this require a vote?
It does. And if I may make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that I move that the board vote to approve the sale of $5.730 million general obligation bond of anticipation note to Piper Sandler and Company at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $51,570 as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Are there questions or comments from members of the board? Are there questions or comments from members?
It's not public,
Oh, it's not a public?
no.
Okay, well then, nothing from you, thank you. We don't have to close the public hearing, do we?
No, we'll just take the,
Yeah.
ask for the vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, it is a vote. Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you.
Item number 5, a public hearing will be held to review traffic rules and regulations as they pertain to Locust Street downtown.
Steve, is this Aaron's going to present to us?
Yep, the board received a brief memorandum in the packets on Friday, and our Director of Land Use and Community Services, who also chairs DTAC, is here to speak on behalf of that item and get some feedback from the board.
Welcome, Aaron.
Good evening, Mr. Mills. For those who don't have the benefit of the memo in front of them, a little bit of background. Earlier this year, the building department started issuing certificate of occupancies for the first floor commercial spaces at 24 Locust Street. And shortly thereafter, we started having some parking management problems in and around that area. DTAC had talked about this at some time, about what a possible solution would be for that. And we're before you tonight to recommend that we adopt currently the parking regulation on Locust Street between Maple and Poplar is 2-hour parking on both sides of the street. We are here tonight to recommend that we turn that down in front of 24 Locust to 15-minute parking. I will also say for background, we have been working with the property owner. As I said in the memo, we've been working on this for several months. The planning staff has had some concerns about non-compliance of the property owner in their parking plan that they received from the planning board or that they presented to the planning board. So we didn't bring this to the select board back in June because at that time we were still having an ongoing conversation with the property owner about making some changes to their on-site management. And we felt that it wasn't yet ripe to act on the public parking piece. Since that time, we've had several productive meetings with the property owner, their attorney, and their parking management person. And so now we are coming before the select board to amend the rules for parking in front of 24 Locust, and we recommend that we go down to 15-minute parking, and that's largely based on the type of businesses that have occupied the first floor there. We have a sub shop, the corner grocer, and a smoothie shop that all seem to have
What
high.
was the third one?
A smoothie shop,
Smoothie.
smoothies, like health drinks. And there's a lot of turnover with those businesses. There's a fifth business there, a daycare center. They have a different parking situation, and that we have not had much of a problem with. But those high turnover businesses, the 2-hour parking in front has been a detriment to getting people in and out quickly. And we've had some conversations with property owners, with the property owner and with the business owners. And again, DTAC reaffirmed their position last month that they would recommend 15-minute parking.
Thank you. You seen Gardner, do you have?
Well, Dan is a representative. I think he should go
Thank
first,
you.
but then I have
Thank
to
you.
have questions.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we did listen to the business owners, but more was some of the people complaining about the 2-hour parking being utilized by employees that was affecting the business people, and there was a hesitancy on the DTAC committee to go to 15 minutes, but I thought it made sense. There will be some enforcement issues, but people will get the hang of it's 15 minutes, and if it's 20 minutes, it's not a big deal, but the turnover is what's needed for the businesses to get their customers in and out, and it really makes sense.
Thank you. Any further comments from you, Dan?
No, I'm good, thank you.
And Gardner?
So who proposed the 15-minute? So you said that there was a problem. What is the problem trying to be solved?
At the moment, if you remember the building before it was redeveloped, it was basically just a massive curb cut.
It was facing parking.
Yeah, head-in parking. And there was no on-street parking in that location, even though we had a 2-hour rule in that area. Basically now, these businesses have been asking their customers want to come and go, and as Mr. Bennett's alluding to, what we've seen is individuals parking in those now. There's approximately 5. They're not striped, but it's about 100 feet long, so you can fit about 5 cars in that spot. Parking for an exceedingly long amount of time. And again, as we have the businesses in those buildings are, you're running in to grab a sandwich, you're running in to grab items from the corner grocer or a drink from the smoothie operation. There's just people staying there far too long to be conducive to that sort of turnover. The building does have a parking lot across the street at 11 Locust Street. And we're, again, working with the property owner to make sure that there's enough and adequate parking available in that parking lot. But for people that just want to run in and run out, if you can't park in front of the business you're looking to patronize, it's not good enough, and the businesses are receiving a lot of concerns and complaints from their customers that it's not convenient, and we think a shorter time frame would facilitate that.
So but you identified the problem as employees, primarily
Part
employees
of the problem.
parking there.
It's part of the
parking
problem.
there.
Yep.
Because residents have their own spots
Correct?
across the street.
Correct.
And so they're not the ones consuming those spots, those few spots. It's employees. As a matter of fact, we all know, one of them is the truck that stays there pretty regularly. It's an employee.
Yep.
So, there are actually 6 businesses in that immediate area. The Betty Ann's, the corner store, yes, they're conducive to turnover. The nutrition, half and half. You've got a childcare situation, you've got a beauty spa also there, and across the street you have a tea shop. And it would be detrimental to any business who needs more than 15 minutes to change this to 15 minutes simply to appease a couple of the businesses, 50% of the businesses at this point. If the tea shop, if someone wants to go in and have a cup of tea, sit out front, she has some nice chairs and tables, relax and enjoy it, that's great. They should be able to without fear of being towed, and they shouldn't have to be forced just on that side of Locust Street. So I'm not in support of the 15 minutes. You did put in your note that there's 15 minutes on Page. I drove down Page. There's no 15-minute signs there that I saw.
They're in the driveway, in the parking lot across from the old fruit store.
Okay, that's in the parking lot.
Right.
That's not on Page Street
Well,
itself.
they get moved.
They got moved.
They got moved in front
They're
of
in front, they're on Page Street,
Right.
the first two.
First two
three parking
spots, right.
spaces, yeah.
Okay, well, I drove down there, I didn't see, I saw the rest of it was 2, and that's primarily because Page Street is a residential street. You've got only one store, which is a corner store, from Murphy's Market. I find that this is, we talk about spot zoning all the time, I think this is spot traffic enforcement. We do have a problem with who's gonna be, are we gonna send our traffic person down there every 15 minutes? No, I don't think that's the case. And if we're going to go this route, we should have established criteria about what designates 15 minutes, because I won't be able to answer right around the corner, Domino's or the cleaners, the dry cleaners and convenience centers right there, why, if they come before us and say, hey, I too want 15 minutes. So I'm not in support of this. We've had issues downtown parking previously with employees taking up the spots, and we've worked with the businesses. If this is a business-caused problem, it's a business solution problem. They should be telling their employees, don't park there. Don't be there. I need the trade. It should be self-governing, not us governing. So I'm not in support of changing this to 15 minutes, at least until you define some pretty identifiable criteria, what constitutes something that should be 15 minutes. You've got plenty of convenience stores and sub shops all up and down High Street and Maple Street, and any one of them, if you do it for these businesses, the purpose of encouraging turnaround at these businesses, then you'd have to listen to their application and have pretty strong reasons not to do it downtown or not to do it in other places. You've been working very hard to convince people there are lots of parking in Danvers. It may not be right in front of the shop you want. As a matter of fact, within 2.5 blocks of that address, you've got a lot of downtown parking, you've got Hobart Street lot. So I cannot support 15-minute parking at this. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Gad.
If I may
Yes,
add
Dan.
something, the problem is with the 2-hour parking, it doesn't matter who's in there, it's taking up those spaces that customers can't use. Whether it's self-enforced, the employees, you're right, but they're spoken to, but they say the sign says 2 hours.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Maureen, have you comments?
I'm in support for the 15 minutes. I know the location. I think those particular businesses, you are in and out, like Dan said, maybe it could be 20 minutes, but I know the rule is 15. I'm in agreement that, if there's a hair salon, there is that parking on Hobart Street, so people have to walk a little bit more. I'm in agreement with it. I think we want to support the businesses here in town, and maybe I know Gardner says if we do it for one, we do it for all, case by case, when it comes before us. But I think that location definitely needs the 15 minutes, so I'm in support of that.
Thank you, Maureen. Matt, have you comments?
I had a couple of questions. So across the street, the tea house was mentioned. So DTEC created some parking specifically for that business. What's the duration for that?
2 hour.
2 hours?
That was always there. What we did, I think, in 2019 or 2020 was
Yeah, you
restripe
striped
the area so that people
Yeah.
felt that they could park there
Right.
without getting rear-ended or that they were sticking in the road.
To the point that my fellow board members made about kind of being spot-specific, I mean, when that Maple Square comes online, we're gonna have a similar problem. Maybe there should be a more thought-out plan for the area in general and not specifically in front of a 20.
And in part, that's why we didn't bring this issue to the board in June, because I will say, everyone anticipates there being a problem when Maple Square is ready for occupancy. But in this particular case, staff has identified and is working with the property owner. They are not, or have not been, running their on-site parking spaces consistent with the decisions that they've received. So that's why we said, I think a little bit to Gardner's point, they've also need to do more to alleviate the problem, and we didn't feel it was ripe for us to take public action when we had demonstrable evidence that they probably weren't doing everything they could with the spaces they have. So looking forward to Maple Square, again, we're gonna, as we get closer to occupancy, we will be much more thorough with them in understanding how their tenants are going to park and what the expectations are for their employees and where long-term parking is supposed to go. Obviously, they're gonna be right across the street from the Hobart Street lot, so that's gonna be less of a barrier than it is here at 24 Locust, where it's not that far away, but you gotta cross the intersection. We've heard a lot of excuses about why that's just an inconvenience, and even though I think the employees that there for 4 hours can walk 30 extra feet. So we're trying to work through that with the property owner at 24 Locust, and I think we've been making progress. We've had several productive conversations over the last couple of months.
And talking about Maple Square, so where the corner store and Betty Ann's and the barber shop were previously located in the low numbers of Hobart, weren't there time restrictions for that stretch as well? That because you'd notice that
Yeah,
there
I
was
don't
a high
remember.
turnover of, and it was almost like an honor system that was self-policing, right? To have a parking, officer kind of stand there, that's kind of that's,
I think that was also 2-hour parking.
yeah.
Hobart between Charter and Maple was 2 hours, so in front of the corner grocer and the barber shop and the old Betty Ann's would have been 2 hours. That said, I think that parking situation, the only reason to really park there was because you were patronizing one of those businesses, so minus maybe the barber where you'd sit for 30 to 45 minutes. Everybody else that was looking to be in that stall was running in, running out.
Right.
This is a little bit different because we have 5 or 6 retail slots in 24 Locust, with everyone having a slightly different, the beauty salon is more like an hour, the daycare is a little less, different drop-off times and all of that, so different mix.
Yeah, 15 minutes sounds like it would be difficult to enforce. You mentioned the parking lot across the street that they own, that the building owner owns behind the gas station number
Yep.
11.
Yep.
So what's the role of that lot? Is that just dedicated reserved parking for people that live there and own businesses, or can customers park in there?
Our understanding from the staff's perspective is that there are parking spaces in that parking lot that should be available to patrons of the commercial businesses there.
Right.
It appears that the landlord may be dedicating that for owners and staff, as opposed to allowing the public to come and go through that parking lot. And
Yeah.
that's one of the issues that we're working with them on, is that that's not the parking arrangement that we had when we approved the development.
Yeah, I
But we
thought-
didn't know that was the case until occupancy started.
I thought the town planner, Kate Day, kind of made that a condition for approval back, quite a few years ago.
We concur
Yeah.
with that. We concur with
And that they
her.
were also supposed to dress up the back of the lot where it abuts the trail, the rail trail, that they were supposed to,
They have since come in and the planning board agreed to modify that condition, but the shared parking arrangement that was to be used for 11 Locust Street was never
yeah.
altered, and so that's again
Well,
where
maybe there
we're,
should be a percentage of those spots during the day, when the businesses are open, there should be some signage that instructs patrons that they're able to go park across the
That's
street and
what
then
we're
just run
working on.
across. That's kind of
Yep.
a,
that's what we're
you
working
know,
on.
compromise, I think,
Yep.
between this hard 15-minute rule and just allowing people to come and go in that lot. I know there's some pushback on that because they're afraid that it will become more of a general parking area for other businesses in that area. So, and then just one last thing, there's parking next to the old fire station on Maple Street. Now, there used to be signage there that prohibited all-day parking, and the signs disappeared.
Yeah, that was recently brought to our attention, and we'll be revisiting that shortly. I think right now, things are a little in flux on that corner, so it was only recently brought to our attention, but we'll be looking back at that. And again, we have noticed that that's also a spot now where some of the long-term parkers are going because the signs are down, so
Right.
now you can park there for 4 hours when it's supposed to be 2. So we're working on that as well.
So if you identify additional available spaces, then maybe you could increase the time to maybe 30 minutes, something like that. But there's definitely other spaces in that area that could be used and not directly in front of the building. All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. I have some thoughts. First of all, Aaron, thank you for your obvious hard work in coming up with this proposal and dealing with recalcitrant property owners. I did that for much of my living, and it's not always fun. The next thing is that when I worked in Boston, if I could get a parking space within 8 blocks of where I worked, I was really lucky. Employees in some of our Danvers businesses are spoiled or rotten. They think they're supposed to be able to park right in front of where they're working, regardless of where the customers are coming from. And so I don't have sympathy with the employees needing to park within 20 feet of the door of their business. I support your proposal, and I respect very much Gardner's comments. If there are other small businesses that also need this kind of relief in order to make their businesses work, seems to me that because there might be others that need it, that's no reason whatsoever to not approve this particular plan at this location at this time. And I do sense that parking is going to continue to be a really difficult and important part of the planning department's work, because, among other things, because of your hard work and our hard work, Danvers Square is becoming a very popular place to be, and I think that that's wonderful. So, but without going into other things, I support your plan tonight, and I thank you for the hard work that's obviously.
It's not my plan. This was DTAC. There was, in the planning office, there was a lot of individuals involved.
Well, then I should give Dan some credit for that, shouldn't I?
A little
I
bit,
just
a
go to
little bit.
support them, that's all. Occasionally, he asks me what I think.
Maybe even Mr. Bradstreet. Mr. Bradstreet, I think, was in attendance at several of these meetings as well.
Okay. On the proposal tonight, is there further discussion?
It's a public hearing.
Public hearing, is there anyone? Thank you. Would you please identify yourself? Keep your voice up and pull that mic down.
Nova Salmonade Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. How many spaces are we talking about?
Approximately 5.
So can we just make 2 15-minute parking? Like, do we have to have all 5 15-minute? Can we just have a couple? Can we split the difference? And that way the salon still has a longer term and there's a couple spots that there's turnover? And the other thing is, at some point, the town probably has to talk about paying paying for parking and meters. It's time probably to get that going. Every town around us pretty much does it. It's a given if you park in a downtown area that there's gonna be a meter. So I don't see any reason why we can't do it.
Thank you. Is there other further public comment?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
Second, motion to close and second.
Oh, go ahead.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I like the idea of not doing all 5, but doing a set number. I realize we all want to support businesses, but you can't support 2 and have it be a detriment to the other 4 that are right there. It's if you go this route, with all of them being 15 minutes, you help 2, harm 4. So if we're ready to make a motion, I would make a motion that we make the first 3 spots coming towards the square on Locust Street be 15-minute parking.
If I may, that's further away from Betty Ann's.
No, the first, that's right in front of Betty Ann's. From coming into the square, coming towards the square, I don't know if it's northbound, southbound. If you're on Locust Street, going into the square,
Heading south.
The first three, yes.
The first 3.
The first 3.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood
Betty Ann's, the
you.
corner store are right there. Those would be the 3 right in front of Betty Ann's and the corner store.
Can I ask Aaron a question? Why didn't we talk about having one at 1 hour?
No, the very first one is a accessible parking
Well,
space.
So there's a handicap
Yep,
already.
yep. We
And
did
then
talk about it, but at the end, the group decided 15 minutes for all. And it's probably just, again, and this is not to poo-poo Mr. Trask's idea, I thought there was a little conversation about divvying it up. There's only 4 or 5 spots there, why divvy it up?
So we did discuss it.
But we did discuss that, yeah.
DTAC was unanimous to do all of them 15 except the handicap. And I think we should support that, and it will be monitored. It's an ongoing situation down there.
Well, I
But
guess,
if we tell the people 15 minutes, then hopefully that will work for them.
so I guess the question, I made the motion, and if it doesn't get seconded, that's fine. I understand. I'll go with the will of the board.
Before you discuss it, Gad, why don't
But-
we ask for a second on your motion for approval of the plan limited to 3 15-minute parking spaces, is that correct?
That was my motion, yes.
Yeah, and is there a second?
Okay. But the question then I want to follow up with, my motion doesn't carry, that's fine, I get it. Were the businesses notified? If we're going to do zoning, if someone comes before for zoning relief, like the ZBA or some other changes, were all 6 of the businesses notified that this was a discussion point for DTAC?
I don't know if all 6, I don't know that we spoke to the nutrition shop specifically, but I know Kathy Simon has talked to multiple, I believe she has spoken to everybody. I have spoken to half of them. Mr. Patel has been coming to the last couple of
Yep.
meetings, the owner of Corner Grocer. So they're in the loop, and again, a lot of the conversation has been about how to instruct their employees.
Right.
But
But if
I,
Miss Farmer was not there, she didn't have a voice for her business at the tea place.
But she has 2-hour parking, and that's not changing.
But that restricts her. That means you're forcing people to be on her side, and anybody who is abusing it and parking 2 hours are now gonna go to that side. So,
I had a question.
I think it would be fair to poll those business owners, because what you're in fact doing is restricting the businesses that can go into 20 Locust Street. They can't entertain a beauty salon, a nail salon, something that, a curio shop, something that requires more than 15 minutes. You're already
And
cobbling 2
they
businesses.
they have off-street parking available to them, and the property owner has failed to provide an adequate number of those spaces to their own tenants. And that is a big part of the zoning enforcement conversation piece we've been having with Mr. Carnevale and his staff, because it's contributing to the problem, and we want to see that rectified. But I understand, we did
Maureen has a
not go
question.
out of our way like we
Yeah.
did in some of these other DTAC issues of surveying everybody and doing a big thing. We have talked to several business owners, I have spoken to several business owners, Kathy Simon has been there quite a bit through the spring, and I know she's shared maps of where employees can park. We've talked to business owners about what their options are, and we know that Mr. Carnavale and his staff have, been also outreaching to those folks.
Excuse me, Maureen, just
I
a
just had a
second,
quick
please.
question,
dear.
Aaron,
Just
through
a
the chair.
second, Maureen, because
Yeah.
we're having a debate on a non-existent motion.
Exactly, and I want to make a motion, so if I
Before
may.
we continue debate, we'll be
Yep,
right back to that.
Thank you.
Is
So I
there
make a motion that we support the change in the traffic rules and regulations as presented for Locust Street.
Can I just ask a question? Can it be
You- no,
changed if
no,
we
No, you
vote for it?
can't ask a question until there is a pending matter. After there is a second, if there is a second to that motion, then we will have discussion on the motion. So, a motion has been made. Is there a second? I second.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
now,
Yeah.
is there discussion and debate on the motion?
Well, this
Yes.
is what I just wanted to ask, because I do want to support it. My question was, through the chair, through Aaron, if we approve this, which it sounds like we will, and I'm all for it, can it be changed? Can we see how it goes for a while and
Could come
go
back in
back?
2 weeks.
That's what I'm saying, so why can't we, I'm all for it. I want to support the businesses in town. On the other side, the tea shop, the beauty shop, any other people can park. Hopefully, Mr. Carnavale will give us some of those spaces. People can go around the corner of the old fire station, so I am in support. That was my question, I just
Thank
wanted to
you.
know
Thank
if it
you,
could be
Maureen.
changed. Thank you.
Is there further debate on the motion? Matt, had you?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this. I think there needs to be a more comprehensive plan in that general area, not just the spaces in front of the building.
Okay, thank you.
And I've said it before, but I won't support this either. I can't support helping two businesses and harming four.
Okay. Any further discussion? For the motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
It is a vote and it's approved. Thank you. Kathy, proceed to the next agenda item, please.
Item 6, the board will consider the application of MIK Construction, Angelo Liapis, manager, for permission to occupy the public way in front of Berry Tavern at 2 High Street for roof work at that location.
Hello, you please.
Good evening. My name is Angelo Liapis. I'm the owner of MIK Construction out of 12 Stone Street in Danvers. And would like to close the sidewalk in front of Berry Tavern so we can change the shingles at the front-facing roof for a time period less than what you discussed for the 5 parking spots.
Fine. And if you just stay there, and I suspect there are going to be some questions from members of the board.
Yeah.
Guard, do you want to start?
Sure. It's a pretty wide sidewalk. I'm looking at the second picture, and I'm wondering, are you using like a scissors jack? Are you using scaffolding?
Ladders.
Ladders. So is there an opportunity to allow pedestrian traffic closer to the street? Block off what you're talking about, the first section of concrete, so that no one can come near your ladders. I want you to be safe too. But if you stop that, if you completely block it off, how will people walk down the street?
We had a discussion with the town clerk, and we said that we can we're willing to hire a police detail for the day or for the few hours that we need to block off that section. And we can work on that section first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And then open up that section even before the restaurant opens up for lunch.
Very good. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
of course,
Dan.
caution tape and
Yeah, I'm-
take all the trash out and everything else.
Dan, did you have?
Thank you. I walked over there this morning on my way to CVS and the post office and noticed the roof certainly needs to be replaced, those shingles, without a doubt. But it is a narrow sidewalk with all those trees, the overhang of the roof, so I would hope you would block off the entire sidewalk.
Yes.
Whether you need a police detail or not is not for us to say, but no way should be allowing pedestrians, because they'll be walking in the street.
Correct.
So
We'll
I'm
do the
support
same
that.
thing. It was a few months ago that they blocked the sidewalk to change some piping.
Yep.
They blocked the whole sidewalk. There was a police officer just directed.
Yeah, and I
everybody
don't think
across
there's
the
much
street.
pedestrian traffic going that side of the street in the morning. At night, probably when you got all your customers running in and out, but I think, close it up.
Maureen?
How long did you say it was gonna take? Couple hours?
For that section, yes.
that
We'll
section.
work for the whole, on the whole roof for the day, but we should, we're planning to be there first thing in the morning, and we will ask the building department allow us to start early. A Sunday would be perfect. The building inspector already told me no, so
That's a
I don't
no-no.
know if, huh?
That's a no-no.
That's a no-no? Okay, because that's the perfect day to do it, but it's gonna be an early morning, very early morning, so we can be done before the lunchtime, so we don't stop the business from operating.
Anything else, Maureen?
No, that's it.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, just if you could clarify the work and the specific time frame that you estimate it's gonna take. So, for example, it says you're gonna strip the wood shingles and install the ice and water membrane. And then you're gonna install new shingles?
Yes, new asphalt shingles,
Okay. And what's, asphalt?
yes.
That doesn't sound very attractive. What's the duration of, from soup to nuts, from
Oh,
when
the-
you start stripping the wood shingles to when you're off the sidewalk?
First stage is gonna be strip the shingles, install ice and water on the whole roof, all around the building, and then we'll come back
Oh, okay.
another day to put the
So this is a
shingles on.
two-part request.
It's a two-phase, yes.
And you're anticipating closing the sidewalk from the building all the way to the curb?
Correct.
Yeah.
That section of the building, not the whole building.
What about using scaffolding, like pipe scaffolding where people can walk underneath, pedestrians can walk underneath, you can work above, like they do in, like in Boston, where
Yeah,
you
but
can
that's-
still, the
that's a permanent-
sidewalk's
that's
still
a-
open?
That's a permanent solution. The minimum rental for scaffolding and lights and everything else, the cost is probably
Okay,
equals
well, I
the
thought
cost.
maybe you had some. I'm just thinking pedestrians, I really wasn't, didn't take a close look when they were working in the street a couple of months ago.
They had a police detail direct
Yeah.
everybody across the
Just,
street.
people, if they try to go around the ladders and stuff, now they're walking in the street. That's a busy section of roadway there with, there's not really any wiggle room between the travel lane and the curb. The people
No.
will be, I don't know, I'm just wondering if there's not a better solution.
Hold on, please. Matt's still
Yeah.
speaking.
No, that's all I have. I'm just concerned about the impact to the area for
Sure.
people walking, that's all.
And you wanted, what is your name, please?
Bob White, I'm general manager of the Berry Tavern.
Bob, could you go to the microphone, please?
Yes, Bob White, affiliated with the Berry Tavern, general manager. What we're planning to do is similar to what the town approved for National Grid when they redid the gas piping along High Street. And that is to close the sidewalk, have a detail, and to have traffic, foot traffic diverted to the roadway. We can't use only part of the sidewalk because of the trees that are along the immediate frontage along High Street. So, again, the plan is relatively short-term compared to what National Grid did during the summer months when the sidewalk was closed. As Angelo has expressed, it's a matter of hours. They were there for multiple days with the police detail and closing down the sidewalk. So, again, our request is to use the police detail to close down the sidewalk and to do it early in the morning. And I'm out there watering our flowers every day, and there is minimal foot traffic early in the morning.
Thank you, Bob, for your information.
So
Further
can I just
discussion?
follow-up question to that, sir?
Matt, I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Chairman?
speak up.
May I have a follow-up question to that? So you're gonna close the sidewalk and force people to cross the street to get around, or?
What National Grid did is that they had them walk along the street to a portion with tape and with cones, a portion of the street, which is in that area, it's wide enough for 2 lanes, but it is actually only 1 lane because there is a left turning lane and a straight ahead lane.
So people will have to make their way around the trees and the bench, or you anticipate them walking actually in the roadway?
In the roadway.
Yeah, that's problematic.
Again,
I think.
that's what the town approved for
Yeah.
National Grid
All
when
right,
they did their
well.
work.
I wouldn't have approved that, but, and also, not that it really matters, or not that I have any impact, but to replace the wood shingles with asphalt, what's the reasoning there?
I don't think that's in our purview,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, I just thought I'd ask you anyway.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's all I
Anything
have.
further?
Personal preference of the owner's wife.
Oh, that answers that.
There you go.
That settles it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion that we approve the application of MIK Construction as presented?
Thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
Second,
And is there a further discussion on the motion?
just knowing that it's only a few hours in that one section, you'll have a detail who will be able to safely have people walk in that, a small section of the street. I'm fine with this.
Thank you.
There's other work on your roof, I'm sure, but
Yes.
it's not required to block the sidewalk at that point. So while they're there longer than just a couple of hours,
Yeah, I think the
it's just
minimum
that
police
section.
detail is 4 hours, and we
Yeah.
most likely have
They're
to work
willing
within
to
that
pay that.
period of time.
I'm
Thank
fine.
you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote and it's granted. And I also want to say, I think you keep your property very, very beautiful. And to be on that corner of the square is a credit to us all, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further, thank you. Kathy, the next item, please.
A public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws on the application of Aimbridge Hospitality LLC, doing business as Doubletree, Boston North Shore, 50 Village Drive. Mike Frotton, General Manager, for a change of officer directors.
Hi,
Please identify yourself.
Mike
and-
Frotton, General Manager of the Doubletree in Danvers.
And what would you like tonight, Mike, from the board?
My company applied for a change of directors, and that's what they're looking to do.
Madam Clerk, are the papers in order?
The papers are in order, and I don't believe there are any changes to the local operation. This is a corporate change only.
Is that correct, Mike?
That's
That
correct.
This is a
This is someplace in
New
California.
York, Washington, Tallahassee thing,
Yeah.
having nothing to do with your local operation?
You probably knew about it before I did, so.
Okay, thank you. Guard, have you?
Yeah, as long as there's not a change in the liquor license name, this is a standard corporate thing, and I'm surprised we actually have to do this, but okay, I'm fine.
Okay, Dan,
No questions?
Maureen?
I'm fine with this, thank you.
Matt, anything?
Nope, all set.
Thank you. Hearing, let me see.
Public
Public
hearing.
hearing.
Public hearing. Are there comments from anyone in the public?
I move we close the public hearing?
Motion to
Second.
close, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now on the application?
Make a motion that we approve the application for, and under Chapter 138 of the General Laws and the application of Aimbridge Hospitality LLC DBA Doubletree Boston, Mike Fronton, General Manager, for the change of officers directed.
Thank you, Dan. And there's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I make comment, Select Board Member Trask suggested the last time we had this that we change our policy. At the time, I didn't think it made sense, but further review, it might be something for this board to consider. What is the process to allow these future change of directors to move forward without us wasting their time?
When it's at the corporate level, outside of the Danvers operation?
Correct.
Yes.
Sure, let's discuss it if you care to.
Well, if,
Anything further?
I think perhaps we'd hear next time from the clerk on her thoughts of the legalities. I'm sure it's legal. There's probably no change. I don't know what the
Well, I
manager
guess
feels.
I would ask I'm with you.
Yep,
And I would ask the clerk, because even though this wasn't an ABC change, they may have regulation. So I agree, and if the clerk comes back to us and says there's no reason that we can't give the clerk's office the authority to approve these, I'd be comfortable with that.
Great. Kathy, would you be able to look into that and advise us?
I can look into that and have an answer for you at the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On that matter, Matt, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope, all set.
Okay, nothing. Maureen, anything?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Now, where are we?
We're on item number 8, which is an application for a one-day liquor at Endicott Park for a paint and sip. And they have withdrawn the application at this time and would be expected to be back to the board.
Okay.
Item number 9 is also a one-day liquor event. Abby Hellman from Gluten Free New England does not appear to be here.
Okay.
She did reach out to me and said that she may not be able to be here today, so I would hopefully be able to reschedule that for the next meeting.
Any objection to
Nope,
rescheduling?
that's fine.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, that brings us to item number 10. The town manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Steve?
Thanks, Chairman. I'll report on items I find interesting, and hopefully you do as well. First, we spoke at the last meeting about the upcoming Budget Conference Committee meeting. We've worked with DCAT and settled on having that meeting at the Senior Center. So that, as a reminder, we're looking at October 12th at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. And I'll be sending an invitation out this week to the other boards. And then we'll publicize that meeting in advance so that folks who want to come and listen in and participate in the conversation will have ample notice to do so. So again, I'll be sending an invite out to this board and the other 3 major boards later this week.
On that subject, Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Yes, please.
is this considered a public meeting that we will entertain the
It would be the-
questions and comments from the public?
It would be the board chair's discretion.
Okay.
The Budget Conference Committee by nature is not does not have a public hearing component per se, but certainly, given the topic, that would fall under the board's chair's discretion.
Okay.
And anything further on that particular, I'd like to just say one thing, that the concept of the budget summit is extremely important because, among other things, we need to discuss whether or not the town is threatened with the necessity of a Proposition 2.5 override because of budget concerns in some substantial measure related to the relationship between our town and the budget demands of Essex Aggie. And that is going to be one of the important topics there. So it's important. It's like, how do we pay for everything that we have, which nobody wants to change in Danvers because all the people I speak to are very pleased with the quality of service. They don't want it reduced. And we have a real agony of trying to find the money to pay for it. Anything else, Steve, on the?
Not on that. Just as a quick follow-up to an email that I sent to the board on September 12th with various updates. One of those updates was that the Falcon Fest group has been working very closely with staff from across a number of departments on several events that they're looking to hold in 2024. One of those is bringing back a much reduced version of the fireworks, which a lot of folks have expressed an interest in pursuing, and then also a bonfire, a tree burning event in January. So I would like to invite representatives from that group as well as staff to come to our first October meeting to share those ideas directly with the board. Approval for both of those events fall under the town manager's jurisdiction, but given the community, the public-facing nature, they have the potential to draw large crowds. I thought it was important that the board have an opportunity to hear directly from the applicants as well as some of our public safety staff in terms of what the planning process to date has looked like. There would be a permit required from the select board for the bonfire. That would be voted by the board and issued by the fire department. So that would be an item at a future meeting that would need to be discussed and acted on. But for the October 3rd meeting, I thought it would be helpful to have the groups come in and make a small presentation to the board, if that's something the board
Is
is
that the
interested
chair's
in.
decision?
You make the agenda.
Any objection to that? That'll be on the agenda then, Steve, thank you.
Thank you. You received a flyer in your packet tonight, the second annual Latinx Heritage Celebration. That is scheduled for Saturday, September 23rd at the high school. There'll be hopefully no feud. There'll be food, music, presentations. The rain event is the same day inside the atrium, so hopefully the weather will be good. But that'll be at the DHS parking lot, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on September 23rd. Also for government dorks, Danvers is currently hosting the MMA Suffolk Leadership in Local Government program. It's a course. Danvers actually has graduated the second highest number of employees from that program. In over many years, 500 local government employees have gone through that program. It's been very successful and effective for us. We actually have a student in the current class, Stephanie Jaros, who is the assistant town clerk. It is a program that is done in partnership with Suffolk. The courses that you take over the course of a semester all count as graduate courses toward a potential degree if those employees choose to go on and earn a degree. And we have a number of our DPW supervisors have been through the program. Corey Grace, who is was recently hired to replace Susan Little as our retirement board administrator, is a graduate of that program. And it's just really, it's an effective program. They bring in local government managers and HR directors and budget directors from across the Commonwealth to teach these courses to people who are interested in advancing within their own organization or eventually becoming a manager or take on a department head position in a community. So we're excited. We were supposed to host this in fall of 2020. But everybody remembers what happened in fall of 2020, so this was our makeup. Because we've sent a number of employees through, we demanded that we get to host one someday, so it's our turn. So that's very exciting. And we kicked off the Citizens Academy class, the fall 2023 class in this room this last week. Great class. We have residents who have been here. Some of the cadets have lived here for 60 years, some have only been here a year. All of them want to learn more about the town. Get more involved in the town. We have a number of town meeting members who are in this cohort. We have several graduates of the program with us tonight, and Dave, the chair, was there to represent the board and did a nice job offering his thoughts. So that'll go on throughout the fall, and then of course we'll get a presentation and celebrate the graduation of those cadets when they come back in December. And the last item I wanted to note. The Director of Finance mentioned during the approval of the bands, but in the town's recent credit rating from S&P, the town's rating was reaffirmed, but there was a note on page 3 of that report that would go unnoticed if you weren't paying close attention, but the town of Danvers, like just about every community in Massachusetts, its pension and OPEB is other post-employment benefits, which is really just retiree health care. Those are the largest liabilities that communities in Massachusetts have because we provide pensions and retiree health care to our employees. The total combined liability currently across both of those programs is $190 million, which is a large number. But importantly, that number is down about $125 million from where it was just 2 years ago. And the reason for that is twofold. One, there's an inverse relationship with bond rates and these unfunded liabilities because the way that your future liabilities are calculated is based on the prime bond rate. So when that bond rate was close to zero, everybody with unfunded liability had higher numbers. Rate is rising. We would much prefer to still be in a low rate environment and have a larger liability, but be that as it may, the liability has dropped. But about 25 million of that $125 million decrease is attributable to the board's vote several years ago, signaling that once the pension system was fully funded in 2035, that the resources being used to buy down that liability would be redirected to OPEB. And by taking that vote, the actuaries were able to change their future assumptions about the liability. So again, 190 million is still a very big number. 68 of that is pension, 121 of that is OPEB. But the OPEB number alone was about 240 million just 2 years ago. So that will fluctuate as the rate fluctuates. But the vote that the board took made a structural difference in that liability. So that would be a kudos to you. And we were certainly very excited to have our rating reaffirmed. And I think As was noted, 3.5 as a borrowing rate is certainly higher than it has been. But we also know from our financial advisors that in a very low-rate environment, the delta between highly rated issuers and low-rated issuers is very narrow, and that gap grows as the rates increase. So we are paying more than we were to borrow, but we're paying far less than communities with lower ratings. So kudos to Rodney and his team. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Kath, what's next?
Item 11, there are no consent calendar items, so we can move to item 12. Correspondence, select board new business, previous new public business, updates, and select board closing comments.
We start, could Matt, please?
Sure, if I could just, through you, Mr. Chairman, ask the town manager for kind of an update on the conversion to the new trash containers. It appears that they've been delivered to most residents and have received some feedback. I had a couple of questions. One was, does the town retain ownership of the containers?
Yes.
Okay. There was a suggestion that.
Hopefully there's no black market already for the bins.
They're large.
They are large.
There was talk about charging the town rent to offset the trash fee to store the containers on private property.
We're happy to pay that, and we'll make it up in property tax.
Yeah.
So, in terms of an update, the bins are, I believe that we are near, if not completed, with the rollout of the delivery of those bins. Our public works staff, specifically Erica DiDonato and Cheryl Stanford up in the DPW admin, have been having conversations with residents. We're getting two lines of question. One is, can I get a second bin? The second is, can I get a smaller bin? The answer to both of those will be yes. And to date, Erica's had conversations with probably 15 to 20 residents regarding both of those requests. So we said, early on, some percent of customers who want a second bin before they've used the bin will find out later that they didn't need a second bin. And some percent of customers who are looking at the size of this bin and deciding that they want a smaller bin probably won't actually need that. But we will be providing both. The plan right now is we're asking folks to let us know. We're putting those lists together. I believe November 1st, we'll start working to roll out either the additionals or the smallers. There's a bit of a lead time in getting the smaller bins. We wanted to see what the initial reaction was going to be based on the 15 to 20 now that they've all been rolled out. We're thinking 100 it will be sufficient to start with the smaller bins, but it's a fairly short lead time to get additional cards. And some people are, and I'll just say for the folks at home, the vendor has been delayed in getting the new trucks, not because they waited to order, but because the supply chain and the delay has been longer than anticipated to get them. So people are seeing you're using the new bins now. There are still people dumping them, and that'll change once the new trucks are available and rolled out sometime this winter.
Right. Well, I noticed last week that people were actually already using them. I don't know if the guys on the trucks are too happy about that. But you mentioned smaller bins, because I've seen in other towns, in Salem specific, where some people struggle with moving those things around. They're, for someone that might have some type of, a disability or something, that could be a real challenge to move those. So if we could make a smaller bin available, especially for the trash, isn't?
Well, the recycling's a larger one.
Yeah, but they're both fairly
large.
large.
Yeah. And I think that, and I think you nailed it. The calls have been coming from people with mobility issues and also from seniors. So we have this started, and we'll be able to turn that around.
Yeah, that's great. All right.
Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, I have one other thing. Is I had a couple of town meeting members contact me about Sandy Beach. So there was a sign at Sandy Beach that said, I think, "Welcome to Sandy Beach," and the town has had that removed. I've been playing phone tag with Dave Mountain to try to understand why that is. I know there's an issue with there's signage for the water's polluted, and people shouldn't be swimming there because of the contamination, high bacteria counts. But I'm just, I was just curious about why that sign was removed, because it's just, it's one of the few public areas along the water that the public have access to. So that's kind of a concern for me. And in tandem with some of the signage at Pope's Landing that prohibits parking in that area unless you actually have a boat. So people, many people go down there. They might patronize the businesses across the street and then come over and sit on the benches. So that's another, it's kind of like another example where access to water by the public is being curtailed. So I think that we should all be concerned about that.
I know that with respect to Pope's, there was an issue with commercial parking there, so the signage was an attempt to deter people from leaving their commercial vehicles there. There should still be parking for folks who just want to go and sit on the bench, and I can circle back with
Yeah.
Chris to make sure
Well,
that's clear.
There was a business there, like a health business, where patients would come and go, and I think the employees at that business were using it as all-day parking. And Mr. Henry, I think, had worked with that owner. I think they're relocating to another
They've left.
location.
They're up on Sylvan Street now.
They've
Okay,
moved.
so that was probably the biggest impact. But the signs are kind of ominous looking, you know, that if you park there, you're gonna be towed away. And people like to just kind of, they're not there all day, they're just kind of hanging out, so.
There is a river committee meeting on Thursday at the Carriage House, probably, and so that can be brought up, but I'm, as a representative of the river committee, this is a discussion point we had, and you are absolutely correct. It was the abuse by a business that is no longer there that was causing them to put this up. There's also some, because we get federal funding for that use for the launch, there was some discussion about protecting the voters' rights to launch and park. That's why you have those elongated parking, striped parking. So it's a delicate balance, you're correct. And the harbor master took some flack when it first was initiated, but it's hard to call out and say it's business X that was causing this. They can't be that direct. They have to, so, but now it is resolved. And I think the people who patronize that for just recreation, to come and sit at a park and talk with their friends and so on and so forth, have a better understanding of what that
Yeah.
means.
Okay, that's fine. It's a well-used area by the public, so we need to kind of, you know, make sure there's some give and take about, you know, how the ramp is being used, and then also how people want to just kind of recreate on the benches or whatever. So, all right, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen, have you comments?
Just a few, just a couple, thank you. It's funny you talk about the trash barrels, because I was at Kiwanis today, and some of the members were mentioning how big they were and how hard they were to move around, so that's good news, Steve. And when is the trash pickup? Is it targeted for October 1st?
Well, the bins are in use now,
Yeah.
but the November 1st, we're asking folks to let us know we're collecting those names. And I think technically we said, let us know, we want people to use the new cans and then contact us if they want to make a change, either with additional cans or smaller cans. But people could reach out now, and if they'd like to get on the list, they should reach out to the DPW admin now.
Okay, great.
But prior to November 1st, I don't think people will be seeing any, either a second can or a smaller can delivered.
And then this afternoon, I had the pleasure of our Select Board Member Bennett talking at our Kiwanis meeting about, you know, updating the Kiwanians, members about, you know, what we do at the Select Board, and, you know, some town questions, which was great. Maybe we could get an update sometime, Steve, next meeting, maybe on the roadways, on how, you know, DPW was doing really good on the roads, and they did a great job on Cabot Street. And I think it's wonderful that the kids went back to school, and we want to watch safety, you know, everybody, the drivers, especially with all the sports too, down John George Park. It's a little congested down there too. And then I also attended the North Shore Chamber of Commerce breakfast meeting, which was very interesting. Our own town manager, Steve, was there, Steve Arthur, and the other leaders. And, you know, it was really nice to hear, you know, the pros and the cons, what every city and town is facing. That was very interesting. That's always a nice event to go to, if anybody wants to look at the chamber. The rail trail, all I can say is I walk it every Sunday. I just ask people to be responsible and pick up their trash and other things. I did see, I'll tell you, Nancy, Paul and Nancy McNulty, they do a fantastic job. Nancy was out there, you know, with her vest and picking up some items. So if people could be responsible, that would be great. And they do a great job. So anybody that wants to get involved with the rail trail, please let us know. And that's it.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, do you have?
Yeah, I do have 3 items, if I may, before my closing comments. One is the August 31st presentation by Erica and Republic. And I know Mr. Bradstreet was there and a few other people I could see in the audience from watching the video. But the statement was made that there would be a cardboard overflow location at Plains Park. And I wonder if that's the best location, and maybe Canal Street might be better and not so visible. I know when at first we started talking about the cardboard overflow suggested to take it up to the landfill, I didn't think that was reasonable for the residents, but I thought overflow someplace. So can we look at Canal Street?
Certainly.
Thank you. While I'm on trash, I want to thank the governor for instructing state employees to no longer buy single-use plastic bottles. That's a bold move. Concord did that a number of years ago, and other cities and towns have followed. And I know Danvers is adverse to being an early adopter, but I certainly hope that Board of Health will consider a ban on single-use plastic as well as styrofoam. Third, back a number of years ago, I suggested that we look at bylaws for ADU, accessory dwelling units. They call them in-laws, ADUs. My thought was to look at changing and being able to create affordable housing for people, smaller units, and it would also bring in tax dollars to the community, which I understand we'd need. In the interim, Salem has adopted an ADU policy. Beverly has spent the last year studying it, and the city council and planning board are ready to vote on a new ADU ordinance. And I wonder, Mr. Chairman, if perhaps you can work with the manager to see if there's the bandwidth with staff to look at that when they're done with the moderator-appointed subcommittee that's currently meeting, and that we have a selectman-appointed subcommittee to look at ADUs.
Sure, how does that sound, Steve?
I think that's, yeah, I can grab Aaron tomorrow and start that conversation. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when the moderators committee's
Sure.
done, then, and maybe some of those people we can put on that committee, I would think some town meeting members, residents.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing would certainly have a spot at that table. Those are my comments, and I'll save my closing comment for the end.
Of course. Guard?
I got the same correspondence everybody else has been getting, obviously questions about the trash, but that's being handled. I would encourage people to watch DCAT for the presentation that was provided. You can get it either on DCAT on demand, or you can go to YouTube under the DCAT channel and see that there's a lot of good discussion about what can and cannot be recycled, as well as the process of rolling out the new solution. It's funny that the people want us to control costs, and sometimes the control of costs. If we had kept the old model of pick up every week for recycle, and if we kept the old model of keeping people on trucks, our increase would have been more than twofold. So it's a balance. But again, I think a lot of it is people have not yet experienced the actuality, the reality of what's gonna happen, go on. So, in the absence of real hardcore, experience, a lot of worst-case scenario creeps in. On a lighter note, Bill Casawan, the volunteer that we forwarded to the city of Beverly to be a airport representative, was approved last night by the city council. And the town manager says the town has already sent him a letter of thanks and for his volunteer efforts on that board, that committee. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. I had just a couple of thoughts, number of just random things. Sandy Beach. That's where I learned to swim 70 years ago. Actually, Coley Rybicki's mother was my teacher down there. I always went there by bicycle. Now, there is some parking across the street. I think that we should consider, as we move along, and not at great expense, making that more welcoming to older people who go down to the boat ramp and they bring their chairs down there and they have a wonderful place for community discussions in the good weather. Now, that's visible right from Liberty Street. So, of course, something that's visible is more accessible. If it's more accessible, it's more desirable. But there may be a way of making Sandy Beach a more desirable waterfront place than it is now for people to, in fact, maybe enhancing the parking using some of the unused upper lawn area of Sandy Beach. Just, that is a resource that I think people would like. The second thing is the Citizen Academy. I came a couple of nights ago or last week, just representing the board, as the 4th Citizen Academy in Danvers was being initiated for the year. And I just remember 4 years ago, after the first Citizen Academy, Jen Breaker and other people working on that did a phenomenal presentation here at the select board meeting, showing the excitement of the participants, the excitement of our town employees who were taking part in it. And I think it's like, it isn't new anymore because it's in its 4th year. It's still a wonderful community building experience for people. And I am so grateful that Steve and Jen and other people in the town are doing that again. I want to follow up, I think Maureen mentioned the roads. I think much of the paving that was going on in the last 2 months has been done now. It looks to me very neat, beautifully done, and keeping track of contractors who are supposed to be doing certain things with curbs and distances and everything. I think that that is Steve King and his staff who are principally responsible for that, and they are to be commended, I think, for doing a wonderful job from where I look. And I'm on the roads a lot in Danvers during the week. They've done a really wonderful job. I think enough may have already been said about the rollout of the transition to a new trash pickup system in Danvers, that everybody for 4 or 5 months was so anxious about the change and what's going to happen. I go down every morning from my house over to, I think, Cherry Street, and from Cherry Street to Pickering Street, going down to the YMCA, and I have always been looking at the array, the terrific variety of trash in front of people's houses on that street that I really didn't want to look at. And I'm going down the last couple of days, and the new trash barrels are lined up. It is pretty as a picture. And so I think that people are not as nervous or apprehensive about the change as they were. And it seems to me like it's going really well. And again, David Lane and the people on his staff working with management, I think have done a wonderful job on the rollout of that new system. The next thing is, I think at our select board meetings over the next couple of months, I would like to propose a show and tell, short, 5 to 10 minutes at our meeting. One from the director of the library to come and talk about the wonderful programs and resources that are available at our library that people do not know about, and that are wonderful ways of especially getting people my age out of the house, into community, and into discussion with other people, maybe even with book clubs. But for someone from the library to be here to welcome our citizens into their library resource by telling them just what's available for them. The other thing is, I mentioned it at the last meeting. People talk about social media. Will you please stop insulting me with the words social media and making me feel stupid? I do know how to use my computer now. I have an Apple, I have a phone. I'm afraid of Facebook or FaceTime because there's so much nastiness. I don't want to get involved in that. But the thing is, the town is relying upon social media to keep our citizens informed of what's going on in their town, what resources there are. A lot of us don't know what is meant by social media. And at the Citizens Academy last week, part of the initial presentation by Jen Breaker part of it was how do we communicate? And I believe it was a program about social media in Danvers. And I have suggested and asked, and I would like to have Jen Breaker to come in and give us a 5 or 10 minute show and tell. Not that everybody watches our select board meetings, and I don't blame them. I'm glad Bill is, thank you for the people, the loyal people. Thank you, Wally, your loyalty to be here. I'm not joking about that. Don't assume that everybody knows everything about everything, because some of us don't. And when you assume, you make some of us feel stupid. So I would like Jen to come in and do that. Otherwise, oh yeah, finally, I'm seeing yard waste bumper stickers here in front of my 2 fellow members. What's that all about?
So the idea is, rather than throwing away the 2 barrels that I just bought a few months ago, now I can use them, but for yard waste, leaves and all that junk, but I gotta put this on the barrel. So I don't have to go next weekend and throw my barrels away that I just spent $80 on.
Well, we have to use social media
But we gotta get the
to tell
word
our
out.
citizens about that resource. Thank you.
And these are available in town hall, so just come and grab as many as you need for the barrels that you're gonna keep.
But we ought to say a little bit more formally about what this is and not assume that by just having a bumper sticker. Mr. Bradstreet, did you have something to say to affirm what I'm saying?
I agree. We all have barrels. Don't just throw them away. You find a use to them. If you get a sticker, continue to use the barrel you have. You'll save money because you won't have to buy the paper bags to put the
Great.
yard waste in. So it's kind of a little of both.
Thank you for listening to me. That's all I have to say. Dan, do you
Before I
have-
just make my comments, just, we can't get off trash. Can we still use the old barrels until such and such a time? I mean, these poor guys are struggling with the big ones. Do we have to,
I'll get back to, we've heard both. I mean, I think, I'm not sure, certainly, if they're too heavy, they're not gonna pick them up. We'll have to figure that out, but,
I mean, obviously, October 1 starts the recycling every other week.
we've not had, I will say this, we've not had a single, Republic hasn't reached out to us to say that they're having issues
Okay.
with the new barrels. So
Okay.
if and when that happens, I think we'll have to rethink that, but to date, that has not been an issue.
And just to confirm, I can't put the old recycling buckets in the new recycling buckets to be picked up and hauled away? Or can I? They'll fit.
I would say bring them, yeah,
What's that? Right.
bring them to the,
They're all broken. They're not
if they're
worthless.
broken, recycle them. If they're not broken, bring them to the high school for the collection, because we might find an interesting use for them.
Yeah, they're broken. Okay. I'll put it in and see what happens. Okay, thank you. If I may, thank you for your indulgence. Please, folks, when you see a veteran, say thank you. Thank our veterans and thank them for their service. And I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dan. Kathy, did you have a comment?
My understanding is on those recycle bins, that's rigid plastic. and
It is.
That does not go in the recycle bin.
But you can bring to the high school on
You could
Saturday.
bring them to that, right, to that event where they're collecting the barrels. But you
And
wouldn't
how-
put that in your recycle bin because it's rigid
And
plastic.
how are people supposed to know about the recycling plan for the old trash cans if they don't know how to use social media?
Really cool.
So we'll leave that for the next meeting.
Yeah, it's only 2 hours, so they're gonna have to have another one, but anyways, I'm all
Thank
set.
you. Okay, Dan, thank you. Anything further, board members? Is there a motion to adjourn?
If you wish, so moved.
So moved, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much for taking part and putting up with
So you can tell, like,
Nope, very good.